Hey, shalom, I want to start with souls by giving all praise to Yahweh Hashem El Shai, Awaha Kadash Rakah, double honors to Apostle GMS and honesty brothers doing the work in truth while sincerity. Would like to do a quick one on basically how women's lib has destroyed the family, right? And women's lib second wave feminism 1964 is a prominent date. You see that it's right here on this mark, and then you see bam, whew, we skyrocket up, man. So what we go down here, it's on 9-8. So within like 16 years, it had more than doubled. You know, and that is just this devil for you, man. Because everything is, he would have pitched this as, it's great, it's good, but then in that, you is the destruction of the family, right? And now you got more Jake children, what do you call it, being, where's this graph? Jake children being brought up in single parent households. Now, I actually had to stop, because I did this video before, but then when I actually looked at this number, 72.5%, this is the percentage of black children in single parent households, has doubled since 1960, although this trend is universal. I'm looking at this number, I'm in the middle of the video, I'm like, wait, what? That was like, yo, this data doesn't look accurate, so I had to stop it. And then I found another source, and lo and behold, it's more or less accurate. So this is saying, basically around 67%, and this is saying 72.5%, right? So it's basically, it's about around 70% of Jake children are in quote unquote single parent households, right? Now, I mean, as with all statistics, right, it's imperative to see how they've defined certain things. So this is definition says children under age 18 who live with their own single parent, either in a family or a subfamily. In this definition, single parent families may include cohabiting couples and do not include children living with married step parents. Children who live up at group quarters, for example, institution, dorms, or group homes, are not included in this calculation, and gives its data source population reference bureau analysis of U.S. Census Bureau since 2000, and it goes on to say, so whether these guys are trying to push an agenda, in the way that they've displayed these statistics. I haven't got the raw data. I mean, I'm just putting that out there as a footnote, right? Whether these guys have I've got an agenda that they're pushing out by providing these stats to say that it's that high. I don't know. But if these numbers are to be believed, basically around 70% are so-called black children, right? And then you add in the tribes. Oh man, you got the natives, 52%, right? I said Jake, there's around 70%. Hispanic or Latino, 40%, right? So basically, a shitload of Jake children are basically being brought up. I mean, when you add that up, that's around what, between the tribes, that's around what, 53% of the tribes are basically brought up in single parent households, man. Man, that's a damn shame, But like I said, I saw this, I was like, yo, those numbers don't look right. But once again, what's to be noted, this period right here, right? And then also, what has to go in with this is this 1964 war on poverty, right? Which basically allowed you to set up a whole load of systems that basically said, look, man, if you don't, and it goes on in this article here, and it's a bit of a long read. I'm gonna go through it because it touches some good points in there, and when the spirit hits, I'll be getting precepts on that, and I've got some scriptures at the end as well, right? That's the 1964 war on poverty begins, right? So we go into this article, but once again, that goes all in line with this 1964. 1964, but the main point that has to be hit is here in 1970. Right, and I'll get that preset right now, right? 1970, because that was a very important year. That's when this truth started coming back out, right? This is Obadiah 1:4 says, though thou exalt thyself as an eagle, referencing Esau. I mean, his symbol is the eagle. It says, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down. And when did they do that, quote unquote, in 1969? And the following year, right? You had what you call it? You had what was it, 1969, 1970, basically when the Apollo mission, right? 1969, you had Desmond Decker release, "Oh, Poor Me Israelite," right? And also goes hand in hand with Revelation 11 and 8, right? So Revelation 11 and 8 says, "And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city." Is this not what I want? Yeah, yeah. It says, "In the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt." And you read was it Proverbs 21? In fact, it'll be in the precepts. Proverbs 21 and 16. Oh, in fact, all of these, about how you have dead bodies represent, spiritually dead. In fact, I mean, since we're here, let's not talk about it. Let's get it. Right, it says, Proverbs 21:16, "The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead." Right? So then you say, which spiritually called Sodom and Egypt? Sodom and Egypt was in slavery in America. Sodom, they passed that homosexual rights and all of that throughout the entire land. This is where also our Lord was crucified, because that's the main place that they pushed this image of Cesare Borgia. That's where his image was crossed out, if you would like. Right, it says, "And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and their nations shall receive their dead bodies 3 days and a half." Right, this is representative of 350 years, starting from 1620, ending in 1970. Right, "And shall not suffer their dead bodies should be put in graves." Right, so that point there of 1970, that there is, that's a very important mark. Like I said, that's when this truth started coming out. 1970, you see all the things that happen around it. Right, the LGBT movement was, what you call it, was 1970s. Right, Roe v. Wade, which enabled and legalized abortion throughout all the states of America, that was 1972. Right, and like I said, once again, you got this 1964, where you just get this spike of, of single parent households, of divorce and everything, right? All coinciding with that. Now tell me that ain't prophecy, you know? So we go through this. This is how welfare undermines marriage and what to do about it, right? So this guy's coming on the, what do you call it, on the premise of welfare, but what he's touching is not touching is how you've had feminism as an impact into this, right? Because feminism says, look, you can have sex, right, and just do whatever the fuck you want, and the state will then take care of you. But basically, no repercussion. There is no repercussions to anything a woman does. This is an example of it. If it wasn't for feminism, it would have been like, yo, well, why are you even having, children out of wedlock, right? That's not a state issue. That's a you issue. You shouldn't have done that, right? Where is your husband? Bring him here. Stay with that man, right? But all this ties into how, Esau's been able to really push and further his agenda into bringing Jake down. And then, because feminism really is about, getting more taxes from women, because women are terrible spenders, as you've seen. You go, switch to about cheap place of Congo. So out there in Oxford Circus, bro, all those shops are just women's shop for the majority. You have shops that will sell men's stuff in there as well, right? But for the majority, I think there's only one store where the men's section is on the entry floor, right? And that's Uniqlo, and that's literally about it. All the other floors, if you want to go to the men's section, you're either going downstairs or going upstairs. Why? Because women spend and spend and spend and spend and spend, right? This is why you can't trust this devil, because they think that it was a good thing for them, not the other way around. That it was just another way to tax them, more mouths to tax. So historically, marriage has played a critical role in the raising of children. In most cases, the economic benefits of marriage are substantial, right? Marriage among families with children is an extremely powerful factor in promoting economic self-sufficiency, the ability of families to support themselves above poverty without reliance of government means-tested welfare aid. The reasons for this is simple and straightforward. In most cases, two parents working together can support a child more efficiently than one, right? For instance, one will be at work and then the other one will be at home taking care of them. But Hebrew custom is such that you have a, what do you call it? You know, you can have more than one wife, and that makes it even easier, right? And these guys like to move like, you know, before women's lived, women weren't working. Women had, hey, oh, raising children ain't easy, right? But what's women's lived done is basically said, instead of you having, say, what you call it, cotton nappies, you now have nappies that you buy from the store that, you throw them away and they just end up in a rubbish heap somewhere, damaging the earth, right? Means that children no longer get proper food, right? You know, just what you call these things, packet dinners and shit. Yeah, you know, which, you know, if that's all you can afford, then it is what it is. But then you get all of these real, these guys with money, but then they're still, just serving their children them quick meals because they've been at work all day, or their child doesn't get breastfed because they're at work, or they're into what do you call it, or they keep on working until 2 3 weeks before the baby's due, right? So that they can have a longer maternity when the baby's there. And there are stats which suggest, right, that having a child later into your pregnancy isn't so not having a child later into basically having working late into your pregnancy has effects on the child, right? Says, for example, as Chart 1 shows, some 37% of single parent families lack self sufficiency compared with 7% of married couples, right? The benefits of married fathers for children, right? Because, that's one thing Esau's been trying to do, remove the man out of the household, put variance between the two. And feminism, once again, is a great proponent for that. Right now, men have just gotten to the point, I was like, look, man, I ain't marrying a woman for shit. But Esau then says, oh, you don't want to marry her? Well, okay, was he living with her? He was living with her? Okay, that's good enough. Right? It says marriage provides positive impacts well beyond self-sufficiency, but the positive effects of marriage are not limited to self-sufficiency. Children raised by married parents have substantially better life outcomes compared to similar children raised in single-parent homes. When compared with children in intact married homes, children raised by single parents are more likely to have emotional and behavioral problems. You see that? Just niggas, grimy niggas. Look at the jail system. Obviously, you got to factor in for the fact that Esau will target Jake. But then you see how these gremlins behave. Now, be physically abused, smoke, drink, use drugs, be aggressive, engage in violent, delinquent, and criminal behavior, have poor school performance, be expelled from school, and drop out of high school. Many of these negative outcomes are associated with high poverty rates of single mothers. In many cases, however, the improvements in child well-being that are associated with marriage persist even after adjusting for differences in family incomes. Now, this indicates that the father brings more to his home than just a paycheck. Yeah, he brings law and order, right? Dun 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 dun. Yeah, my uncle used to rinse that show off, man. Special victims units and that. Right, this is First Corinthians 11:3. But I'll have you know that the head of every man is Yahweh Shai, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Yahweh Shai is the Most High. This is basically saying that the man is the head of the household, man. The man is above the woman. Esau will have you believe through the guise of feminism, right, that man and woman are equal. That's just not true. Think about it. Whenever you hear, oh, ISIS has bombed this place, Idlib in Syria, or Iraq or Afghanistan, or Boko Haram in Nigeria, right? They'll say there were 300 dead, including 50 women and 2 children. As if to say a woman and a child's life is more important than the man's. When biblically speaking, that ain't the case. You get what do you call it, the case in Judges, where basically the guy, Judges 19 through to 21 or 22, or Judges 19 to the end, basically. Basically, the guy comes in to the end of Judges. The guy comes in looking for his what do you call it, his concubine, and then basically goes into state, and he's staying with an Israelite man, and basically he has some Benjamites that come up, and they want to have a way with this guy, right, with this man, right, this Israelite who was traveling through. And then the guy was, the owner of the house that the guy was staying in, was like, look, man, look, don't do this wickedly, man. Hey, have my daughter instead, right? So this man's life was, he basically put more importance on this man's life than his own daughter, right? Same, and you had another case. What was that with Lot, right? So just to show you that the way Esau's basically switched everything around is completely inaccurate and and incorrect. Says the effect of married fathers on child, back in the article, outcomes can be quite pronounced. For example, examination of families of the same race and same parental education shows that compared with intact married families, children from single parent homes are more than twice as likely to be arrested for juvenile crime, niggas, twice as likely to be treated for emotional and behavioral problems, nigga bitches, nigga women. I'm about treat whether they get treatment for that shit, right? Roughly twice as likely to be suspended or expelled from school, and the third more likely to drop out before completing high school, right? Just try find points. But yeah, it says the war on poverty and decline of marriages chart 2 shows throughout U.S. history, marriage was the norm. Right prior to the mid 60s, nearly all children were born to married couples. When the war on poverty began in 1964, only 7% of children were born to unmarried women. However, over the next 4.5 decades, the share of non-marital births exploded. In 2013, 41% of all children born in the US were born outside marriage. Now, one thing we have to cover is what is marriage according to the scriptures, right? So it says Exodus 22 and 16. Right, it says if a man entices a maid that is not betrothed and lie with her, fucks her, right? If he spits some smooth ass game on her, right? And he ends up banging her, right? And she's an Israelite, he's an Israelite, she's a virgin, that's not his wife, according to the law, according to Israel's law. But then you say shit, that means all these big, you get to a point where, so just get my charger. You get to a point where you get no single women. Well, or no, not a single woman, it's like you're saying, but you get no women that are virgins. So you be like, technically speaking, that is adultery, which is why the scriptures say, "Wicked and adulterous generation." This is right, because ultimately speaking, every woman has a fuck buddy. Every woman has a that woman, not woman, that guy, or even women now, that guy that they speak to for emotional comfort, this, that, and the other. No woman in this side, but all you can go by is, hey baby, what you saying? You single? She says she's single. Don't look too deep into it. Just take it. She says she's single. Just deal with it, man. Right? 'Cause like I said, you dig into it, you find out that there's actually not actually any woman you can deal with, right? Just as long as she's single. Sort of like how if you dig into your food, right? You find out everything has pork in it. Quite literally, everything has pork in it. You'll be eating bread, and bread will have pork in it. Right, mono and diglycerides are fatty acids, man. But it is what it is. Scriptures also say, we shall eat off bread devoured among the heathens, right? And that's one of them ones where, don't get simple now and, just stop eating, because literally everything has got, some kind of abomination in it, right? But, that's just touching the point that sex, according to the law of Israel, is marriage, right? Yeah, so we continue. Right, it says, however, over the next 4.5 decades, the share of non-marital births exploded in 2013. Yeah, I already read that. So I'm just trying to find if there's any points. Oh yeah, basically, then it goes on to saying how I mean, it's going to be a long, long, long read. You know what? What I'll say is if you read this. Oh yes, Archie, no, this is a good point that I can go into. It says penalizing marriage. So the second major problem is that the means-tested welfare system actively penalizes low-income parents who do marry. Right, basically another way to keep the man out the house. And you get cases where like, oh well, if the man's working now, if the man's in the house, then we can't be giving you all of these benefits. And at the end there, it basically says For example, for a single mother who earns $20,000 a year, you know, per year marries a man who earns the same amount, the couple will typically lose about $12,000 a year in welfare benefits. Right, so basically it's saying, look, don't, basically keep them off the books, man. Right, but like I said, this whole problem starts off with the very fact of women's liberation, quote unquote. Now I know that's controversial, but that's just the truth. That's just the truth. These are all of the things in place that basically, because it's built as a good thing. It's built as a thing to help people, right? So if you're in a position where this, that, and the other, but look, man, why was there need for it before? Because you got to understand that this man, he's sort of the damn devil, and he puts, like I said, it actively penalizes people who are quote unquote married, right? So it's all single, be free, do what the hell you want to do, just keep doing whatever the fuck you want to do. That's one of the things that Esau has helped push by giving out all of these aids, right? But that's just goes hand in hand with feminism. Right, it says single parent, right, and down in demographics, it says in the Wikipedia, it says in the United States since the 1960s there has been a marked increase in the number of children living with a single parent. The 1980s U.S. Census reported that 19.5% were single parent households. From 1980 to 2009, the percentage of single parent households jumps to 29.5%. Right, it says the jump was caused by an increase in births to unmarried women and by the increasing prevalence of divorces among couples. Now, divorce was a thing that was, what do you call it? Basically, women, I showed you the graph, man. I showed you it was not this graph. I showed you the graph, man. Boom. More than doubled, man. Right, and back in the day when you had divorce, if I'm not mistaken, basically the man was, in fact, I won't say if I'm not mistaken, um, I'll just see. I'll give you what the scriptures say, because where it was before was more in line with what the scriptures say, right? Sure. All right, so this is Deuteronomy 28 and 50. No, that's not the one. What is that? Down slow if you bear with me. I just don't remember what it. I could have sworn it said that she shall leave with nothing or something like that. Yeah, I mean, I can't find it off the top of my head, or even on the search. Right, so this is Exodus 21 and 10, right? So if he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and the duty of marriage shall not diminish, so a man's allowed to have, according to Israelite custom, another wife. And obviously in this can not be doing that. Okay. All I know, I won't say don't be doing that. All I'll say is, you read the scripture, it says, "Those that have wives be as those that have none." Right, so I'll leave that to your own prerogative, but that's not the wisest thing to be doing right now. All things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. Right, and we're not talking about having weddings and shit, because that's signing a covenant with with the heathens. It's not something we're really supposed to be doing. Especially for something like marriage, which is absolutely nothing to do with Esau, right? As in, if ye do not these three unto her, then she shall go out free without money. Basically, she shall leave with nothing, right? And that's basically what that's going into. Now where was he said? Where were we? Where were we? But yeah, I've done a lot of reading, man. We got that. So this is Psalms 83 and 2. It says, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head. Right? They have taken crafty counsel against our people. And this is crafty counsel, man. The whole welfare state, that was crafty counsel, man. You know, the whole what do you call it? Just just fuck around, don't plan families, don't get yourself, uh, basically the destruction of the household in general. That was crafty counsel. And here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Where am I looking? Where am I looking? Where am I looking? What do I want? Here's the thing. Esau's the kind of guy who'll fuck it up for his own people just to get at Jake. You see that? Right, because this guy is all about chaos. And obviously, amongst this, you have, what you call it, Israelite foreigners. And even amongst it, you have some tares, right? But yeah, Esau will fuck up his own people just to take out Jay. It says they have taken crafty counsel against our people and consulted against our hidden ones. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Right, which is why, like it said in this article here, right? What was it? It's from the heritage.org, by the way. It says basically that they're more likely to become criminals, more or less. That's what they were saying. You got a child from a single parent house, they're more likely to become a fucking criminal. Right? Excuse my French. And what happens when they become a criminal? They kill another J, and they end up in prison. And then you got two birds with one stone. That now they're out the game. Right? And then well, in America, I know you got, I don't know if it's state by state, you got the 3 strikes and you're out rule, man. These will just lock you up for the rest of your life. Might be 3 misdemeanors, man. Whatever, what have you. Three small crimes. And I don't know what legally a misdemeanor is in terms of U.S. law, so I won't even say that. All right. It says, they have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. It says they have consulted together with one consent, they're confederate against you. And they list all the nations that are confederate against us, because ultimately all the nations don't like Jake and they want to get rid of Jake, man. Right, it says Psalm 64 and 5 says they encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privately. Right now, welfare and feminism, that's a snare, right? But it's in the guise of something that's good for society. That's that we should all be aiming for. Yeah, this is good. This is awesome. Ooh, hey, ooh. Right? But really and truly, all it's done is destroy the family. Right? Like I said, you've seen the rates of divorce. At the same time, feminism was that second wave feminism came in. Right? That has damaged the household and the welfare state that was built on top of on top of that as well, right? It says Micah, because you gotta understand that Esau's the one that sets up all of these movements, right? So feminism movement that was set up by Esau, the civil rights movement, that's why it was fucking what's his face, man, and Martin Luther King, right? Controlled opposition, man, because then Esau can dictate the narrative that can dictate which way people go. Right, Michael 2 and 1 says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands. Right? And that's iniquity, that's wickedness, and that's a work of evil. These rights movements, because like I said, people a lot of the time think it's for good. But then you know the nature of Esau, that he's the devil and that he cannot be trusted. You realize that it's not for good, man. Alright, this is Sirach 12 and 10. It says, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Right? It says, so you basically have a chemical equation, right? Iron plus oxygen equals iron oxide, which is rust. The air is filled with oxygen, means that if you have iron, it will rust. So it's basically saying, look, man, if you have that rust will shine through, man. Basically, he might look, because that's the thing with iron. You polish that shit, looks all nice and shiny, right? But after a while, it will rust. Oh yeah, it will rust. Goes in, it's out in the rain. That shit gonna rust, man. You seen cars that haven't got any body paint and it's been left out in the elements, man. They look all brown and nasty and shit. That iron. I believe it's iron oxide. I believe it's iron oxide. Right, but basically rust is iron and oxygen, man. When iron comes into the elements, it's a thing that will happen. Right, so like I said, there was a lot of reading in this one, a number of graphs. But yeah, Lord's really edified. And yeah, it's good to look into all of these data, right? And also being aware of how Esau can, tweak data to fit his narrative, sort of like the gender pay gap. Esau's tweaked that to tweak his narrative, wants also to further the feminism agenda, right? Because the narrative is that women get paid less. So if you're a boss, why wouldn't you just hire women and pay them less? You see what I'm saying? So it's just all bullshit. It's all nonsense. But sorry, it's in that pay gap thing. But I was saying on a serious matter, you trolling through some data, you always got to be careful of the sources. That's why the main reason I even went down to this section. I wanted to see where it was, where the data was compiled from. The thing with statistics, you can skew them whichever way you want, right? But the trend is noticeable, right? From several different statistics, right? Looked at, it basically points to irrefutable fact that feminism, women's lib, ruin marriage, right? Ruin the household, right? I'm just saying this here as a disclaimer, just for future reference, right? You just but because a lot of these resources here, they're probably pro-feminism and all of that, so they've not, they have no need to skew the stats to make it look like this. That's just how it looks, and the main point here is Obadiah 1 and 4 as well, because this is, the bringing down of a society. When you have no children, when you have no families, man, when you haven't got proper family units, when a man doesn't even want to deal with a woman because he's like, fuck, this bitch would take half my shit. Alright? That's a base society, man. That's a that's not a nice place to live. Right? So Lord's really been edified with that. Say shalom.